All right. So yesterday we started our Predators poem, and we're going to keep going with that. So I'm going to share my screen. Sorry. All right. And then under Predators, we can open that up on Savas. There it goes. Okay. Oh, I can't stop yawning today. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to go ahead and get that open. Let it load.
Are we going to listen to the story again?
Yeah, we're going to re-listen to it. It's very short. So you have about 1 minute. Let's go ahead and get logged in. Open this up so that you have the story open in front of you. We are going to do 2 of the sections today, and that's it. We did some of them yesterday, so we'll do a couple more today. And then, yeah, quick ELA lesson. Won't take too long. Remember, next week when we get back, we're going to use the poems that we've read this week and last week to do a comparing and contrasting writing assignment. So now would be the time to ask questions if you need help on the poems and stuff. And then you can ask them too. I'm not going to say no. Okay? Alrighty. So let's start off by re-listening to the story. If you're online, it might be a little bit loud, so maybe turn it down. I'm going to go to about 1 minute. It's about when it started last time. Keep in mind that, well, first off, who is the speaker? Who did we decide was speaking and telling this moment, this poem? Who's talking? Who's the speaker of the poem? Someone in the garden, right? We don't know if they own it. We don't know why they're there, but we know that there is a person in or near the garden, right? And what are they seeing in this garden? What types of animals? Foxes, cat, a dog. What else are they seeing? Anything else?
Garden stuff.
Garden stuff. Okay. So, I think that's pretty good. We know that there's some wild animals, the foxes, domesticated ones, which are the cats, and then the dog. So let's go ahead and listen to this again. I'm going to start it. So the volume should be up, so be prepared in 3, 2, 1.
The Nation's Writer in Residence. Predators
Okay, here we
by
go.
Linda Hogan. I cannot smell the scent of the cat who slept on this sweater, but do know how the garden swells with old and pungent herb art. In sun, the fox bows to my feline and her good dog friends who rule this land. I hoe and cultivate, find my dead aim in the trust that many tales spun this tract long before I came. The dogs do not understand wild nature. I also was domesticated. Oh, give me strength to watch their sorry looks as a bevy of vixen feed on a much smaller body, not the cat's. But it could be.
All right. Do you guys remember what a vixen is? What is it?
Female cat.
Not a female cat, a female fox.
Fox.
Yep, a female fox. So that was a group of female foxes eating whatever this smaller thing was. Poor little thing. I guess that's the way of life. We eat other things, technically. That's true. Not a lot of things do eat us. It's very rare. We don't have natural predators, usually. Sometimes things get to us in the wild, but in life, we don't have predators usually. So, yeah, yeah, murderers, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, under making meaning, yesterday we looked at the concept vocabulary to talk about some of the vocabulary words. We did the first read charts. We did the comprehension check and answered a couple of questions. And then we skipped the research and we did close read the text, correct? I think so too.
I don't think we did all of them.
No, we did not finish making meaning. So we did close read the text. We are actually going to skip analyze the text and go right into analyze, craft, and structure. So we're starting with analyze, craft, and structure today. We're going to look at some of the poetic structures of writing and like the different parts of poetry that you see that are pretty standard across all poetry. We're going to answer a few questions and then we'll do one part of the language development. And then we're done with ELA for today, for the week, because we have tomorrow and Thursday and Friday off, which I'm very excited for. And Saturday, Sunday. We have 5 days off. I'm so excited. Not have to come. Okay, anyway, we can talk about that later. Poetic structures. Let's review some of the things that you'll see in poetry before we answer these questions, right? It says poetry features. Okay, let me try that again. Poetry features certain structures or ways of being organized that are different from prose. Do you guys remember what a prose is?
Isn't that like a type of writing?
It is a type of writing. So poetry is like lines and it's kind of organized in a different way than prose.
Isn't prose and paragraphs and stuff?
Good. Prose is just writing it in paragraph form,
Like a story.
like a story. Most of the things that you see that's not poetry is written in prose, where it's just paragraphs of information or writing. Most chapter books you read are written in prose. So it's the standard way of writing, and it's very much differently organized than poetry, right? Poetry has like the short lines that don't have complete sentences sometimes, whereas prose will be a complete sentence in paragraph form. Okay? So some of the structures that you're going to see in poetry are lines and stanzas. So let's start off with a line. That is a group of words arranged into a row. If you look at the actual poem over here, it's something like this, right? Line number 10 says, "The dogs do not understand wild nature." That is a line, just one line of the poem, okay? And you can number them. That's why they number these a little bit. They have line 5, line 10, line 15, and you can count in between to figure out where line 7 is, right? So the lines are the point at which it ends or it breaks, and those can be important. It's a choice that the poet makes for specific reasons. So for example, the poet may want a line to include a certain number of syllables or have a certain rhythm. There are different types of poetry. One second. Sorry, phone call. So there's different types of poetry, like haikus. That's a type of poetry that, yeah, but those types of poetry will be like they want 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, 5 syllables in the third line. I think it goes 5, 7, 5, like over and over and over again. So it kind of follows a rhythm like a song. So some poetry does that. So they make the decision to make sure that each line has a certain amount of syllables. So sometimes that happens. This story is not that, or this poem, but those are choices that the poet makes to have certain syllables. In some cases, a line break happens at the end of a sentence or in a place where the reader would naturally pause. In other cases, the line ends, but the sentence continues on to the next line. That's kind of what we see in this one, right? a lot of these lines don't end at the end of a sentence. They keep going on to the next line. So again, a poetic choice. That's just what the poet chose to do. The next one is a stanza. That's a group of lines. And a stanza is essentially like a paragraph of lines. Stanzas are the paragraph of poetry. So each set of lines that you see over here is a stanza. So if you start at line 1 and start at the beginning and you go to where it says fox, that is a stanza. The first 4 lines is a stanza because it's a group of lines, and then they're usually separated by some sort of break, and then you have another set of lines, which is your next stanza. Okay. Sometimes these form like a main idea, or they talk about something specific, and then it goes on to the next stanza to talk about something else. Stanza structure often refers to the way a poet organizes the stanzas. A poet may make all the stanzas in a poem the same length or different lengths. Stanzas are named by the number of lines that they contain. So, if we are looking over at this one, most of these, actually it kind of changes, doesn't it? So if there are 2 lines in your stanza, this is called a couplet. Okay? 2 lines is a couplet. 4 lines is a quatrain. 6 lines is a sestet. It's an interesting one. And 8 lines is an octave. So the amount of lines gives it a different name, depending on how many. All of the choices that a poet makes about the line lengths, the line breaks, and the stanzas add to the effect and the meaning of the poem. There are tools that help the poet emphasize certain words or phrases, give the poem a particular shape and order, and add to its emotional impact on the readers. So a lot of the choices that the poets make about what they decide to write and how they write it and the way that they organize it gives it a little bit more character and stuff. Sometimes it makes it harder to read, honestly. But that's poetry. So let's look at our questions here. We have, I think, 4 or 5. We're going to do it again, like where I kind of give you the gist of the answer, and I'd like you guys to write it in sentence form. So number 1 says the poem includes 4 stanzas, right? We have 1 stanza. Row 5 or line 5 starts the 2nd stanza. Line 9 starts the 3rd stanza, and line 14 is the 4th stanza. So it's like 4 paragraphs of writing. We need to figure out what type. Which part? Yeah. So number 1 says what type of stanzas or what type of stanza is used in stanza 1 and 2. So if we look at line or 1 and 2, there's our first one. How many lines are there? 4. Our second stanza has how many lines? 4. And if you go back up to the note section, which type of stanza has 4 lines? A quatrain. Yep, but write it as a complete sentence, please, and explain how you know, okay? Okay, so go ahead and write that into a complete sentence, please.
You know what movie we should watch?
No. I don't know how I can make that an educational experience at all. Exactly. We read the book and we're comparing it to the movie. Yeah, I doubt it. But we're not doing that one either. not appropriate for school.
That is a funny movie. It's my favorite movie.
It would suggest a brother where Art House, but
I haven't seen
it's
that.
worse.
My cousin actually explained the movie says, watch it about it. Wait, how did you do
Alrighty. Let's look at number 2 here. It says, part A, how many lines make up the poem's final stanza? So let's start with part A. Again, complete sentence. If we scroll down to the last stanza, how many lines are there? 2 lines. That one is, yeah, and then part B says, what is the name for this type of stanza? So what type of stanza has 2 lines? Couplet. So you can combine that into one sentence if you'd like, but go ahead and make sure you have both answers in a complete sentence, please, or 2 complete sentences. Oh, yeah. Okay, about 30 more seconds. I don't know. We'll look at it in 30 seconds. All right. So,
I wonder what a line and 12 sentences called.
I don't know. We have to look it up. Number 3 says, to complete the chart, to analyze the line breaks in this poem and identify the lines by the number. So if we open up this chart, they give us a question, and we need to tell which line it is, or that's really it. What line does this thing? So the first one says, which lines in the poem break at the end of a sentence? So which ones actually stop at the end of a sentence? I have a piece of paper right here, so let's go back through and look at it. Which ones have
Oh, I found one.
the end of a sentence?
I found one.
Okay.
This is also and it says, line 15, but it's 15.
Okay.
And first it says, what sentence? And it says, and that's what it says.
Good. So we need to like basically look for periods at the end of the lines. There's,
Four of them. That number 10 is
yeah, I don't see any in the first stanza. None of those end a sentence.
yeah, there's one.
In the first stanza?
Yeah. Thank you. Look.
That's the second stanza.
What's the first one? What's the first one?
But it doesn't end in a line. Like it has to have a period at the end of your at the end of a line to end the sentence. Where are you pointing that?
This one right here.
But that's not the end of the line. It starts another sentence inside the box.
Oh.
Yeah. So like the very end of the line has to end the sentence. So there's not one in the first stanza, not one in the second stanza. We do have one in the third stanza. So we have lines. What's the first one that we see? Line what? We see one at line 9, line 10. Where else?
And then 15.
We missed one in that stanza. So line 9 is right here, where it ends with before I came. Good. Line 10 ends with wild nature. And then line 11 is I was also domesticated. That ends the sentence.
Does that mean it's a text?
Potentially, I guess.
And then it's the last one too.
Good. And then the very, very end of our poem ends with a sentence, but it could be in line 15. So then we just need to go and type those out on our chart. we have 9, 10, 11, and 15. Yeah, it just asks you which lines, and then identify them by the number. No, this one does not need to be in the complete sentence. Morning. Yep. All right. Our next one says, where does the sentence that begins in the middle of line 4 end? So we need to look at line number 4. Yep. Line number 4 says, and pungent herb art, period. The sentence that starts is, in sun, the fox, blah, 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 blah. Where does it end? Where does that sentence end? Line. Good. Line 6, it ends all the way over here. This is one full sentence. You don't have to highlight it, but in the sun, the fox, or in sun, the fox bows to my feline and her good dog friends who rule this land. So that ends in line 6. It's not going to save mine, so make sure you get the answer before I close it. You can put line 6 if you'd like. Okay. It's not going to save my stuff, so make sure that you get that first. So our next one says, where does the sentence that begins at the end of line 6 end? So I'm going to get rid of this thing. So the sentence in line 6 starts with I hoe and cultivate. How far does it go? Not there. Doesn't end there. Not there. Get it. All ends all the way on line 9. I hoe and cultivate, find my dead aim in the trust that many tales spun this tract long before I came. That's a whole sentence, and it ends in line 9. So for that one, you need to write line 9. I'm sure you do, but I'm still going to wait. Okay, line 9. And our final one on that chart says, where does the sentence that begins on line 12 end? So we need to find line 12. I'm going to get rid of this really quick. Line 12 starts with O. Give me strength. How far does that sentence go until where? Good. All the way to the end of your poem, right? There's no period until the very, very end. And these dot, dot, dots don't end the sentence, not yet, so make sure you carry it all the way out to line 15. So on that last answer, the sentence that starts in line 12 ends in line 15. Okay? Yep. All right. Hopefully you got all those. It doesn't save it because I used the preview section, so it doesn't save my work. Hopefully you got those. Okay. So that was number 3. Done with that. Now, number 4 is the last one we need to do. Okay. It says, use the analysis you did in question 3 to answer these questions. Part A. In lines 10 and 11, the speaker simply states an observation. So I'm going to get rid of this one. So
I know what the observation is.
Lines 10 and 11 are right here. The dogs do not understand wild nature. I also was domesticated. The question it's asking you is, how does the structure of each line add to the statement like quality? So essentially, we're going to answer the question, why would the poet choose to write actual sentences on those lines instead of long sentences like she has been doing? So why do you think she wrote those couple of sentences?
To tell us what happened.
And she wrote these lines as sentences because I want you guys to finish that. What about you think? Why would she write those lines as sentences? So you guys go ahead and finish that. I'll give you about a minute. Just finish that sentence up. She wrote these lines as sentences because.
I think these things sound like a weird word.
Yeah. Yep, once you finish that one, you close making meaning. Like I said, we're going to do one section in language development and
I'm gonna guess it. I'm gonna guess. Is it concept vocabulary?
nope.
Word author style.
Yeah.
Author style?
Yep. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and close this one. So under making, yeah, but we just did it all as one. It's fine. So under making meaning, we talked about the concept vocabulary. We didn't write anything in this, but we talked about the vocabulary words. We did complete the first read chart, so make sure you complete that. We did complete the comprehension check, and I did give you answers. You just had to write them as complete sentences. So if you missed that, go watch the video from yesterday. It's all there. And then we did close read the text, which again, we kind of did together. So if you want to watch that video, go for it. And then today we just did analyze, craft, and structure. Hopefully you were here and paying attention. If not, this is recorded. You can watch it later. So under making meaning, we didn't do everything, but we did quite a bit of it. We're going to open language development, and we're going to do only one section here. We're going to skip concept vocabulary, we're going to skip the word study, and we're going to skip the word network. And we're going to only work on author's style. Okay? Only author's style. And we're going to talk about word choice and making better decisions about word choice than just using the word very over and over again, or I don't know. That's the only word that I can think of that gets used all the time. Also is another word that I see you guys use a lot. Well, they talks about people though. Yeah. So word choice and tone. So word choice, word diction, is an important part of a poet's style. A poet's diction may have many different qualities. For example, it might be simple, old-fashioned, modern, formal, or informal. Often, a poet will use different types of diction, even within a single poem. So they could be super formal in one stanza, and then super informal and old-fashioned in a different stanza. It depends on what they choose to do. When making specific word choices, a poet will consider the word's meanings and the emotional qualities that it conveys. These two elements of word meanings are called denotation and connotation. So denotation, well, is the word's actual definition, what the word actually means. If you looked up the dictionary definition of a word, that's the denotation of a word, what it means. The connotation would be the word's emotional feelings behind it. So even if words are synonyms that share denotations, their connotations may be very, very different. For example, the word car has no connotation. The word car doesn't really have any sort of emotional connection behind it. But if you do use a synonym like junker, that's a synonym for car, right? When you think of the word junker, what kind of car do you think? A junk car. One that's really broken down, it's not great. You kind of get an emotional concept of like, oh, that's not a good car. Whereas if you think classic car kind of gives you the idea of like, oh, that's a pretty nice car, like old, rustic. It's a nice car. It gives you, again, an emotional connection to the word instead of the word car, which could just be like anything, right? So we're going to do, let's see. There's two parts here, so we'll just do each. The first one says, read it. In her poem Predators, Linda Hogan uses simple words that may be familiar to even young children. But she also mixes in some sophisticated words that might be unfamiliar to some readers. So complete the chart by adding words from predators that fit the two categories. We'll do it together. So we're gonna look through and find words that just kind of are simple. We automatically know the definition of those words. And then we're gonna look for some more complicated words and write those in. So I think we can fill it out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of each. I want to give you guys 3 minutes on your own. You can get a piece of paper out. You can type them in here if you'd like to. But I want you guys to find simple words that you're like, yep, totally know the definition of that. And then I want you to go back through and look for words that you're like, wow, that's a pretty hard word. I don't know the definition. It's sophisticated. Does that make sense? Opposite. So cat is a simple word, right? You know the definition of cat. Pungent means a smell. It's a sophisticated word. Yeah. So on the left side over here, you're writing in the simple ones that you're like, yes, I totally know the definition. On the right over here is the sophisticated ones that you're like, okay, I don't really know what that word means. They're a little bit harder. Okay. You have to find them in the poem. You're looking in the poem for these 5 types of words, or these 2 types of words. If you want to highlight them so they're easier to find, you can. Maybe choose 2 colors. Huh? No, you want to do words from the poem, from the actual poem, please. Okay, so yeah, if you don't, fox. Is that what you said? Yeah. Yeah, so like fox is one that you guys know that means. I'm going to highlight that yellow because that's a pretty simple word. But something like, let's see, a bevy might be one that you don't know. So I'm going to make pink because it's a kind of a harder word, right? So find a few words for each section. Yeah, you're literally looking for words that you think are easy, you know the words, and then you're looking for harder words that you don't really know. Yeah. Don't overthink it. Words you know, words you don't know. Don't think too hard about it. They don't need to be similar. No, just. There's 5 slots, so try and find at least 3 or 4 to start off with. Mm-hmm. Like it's really light. That's okay. A couple minutes finding those words, please. That's okay. Just choose a couple. Try and find some you don't know.
You know what's weird?
Huh.
Sometimes people don't believe that they help. So, you guys come from almost full breakfast every day.
Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead and fill this out because I think you guys had a bit of time, right? That's okay. We'll just type out the ones that people have found. So let's start with the simple ones. What are some simple words that you guys found and you're like, yep, I know that definition? Wild. Oops. Wild. Fox. What else? Garden. Yep, that's fine. You knew what a nerve was? Okay. trust. So there's a few there. Some of you guys might have put herb on this side. Maybe you aren't familiar with herbs. What else did you guys put in the sophisticated side? Cultivate, domesticated, tract, tract, spells. So like anything, honestly, this is kind of a up to you type of thing. If you know the word, you put it in the simple side on this left side. And if you aren't familiar, what does the sentence say? No, it doesn't mean like tracking something. Tracked is like the path that someone has taken before you, kind of. If it was tracking something, it would end with a K, T-R-A-C-K.
And I think what that one's looking at, it can also be like a parcel of land, a tract.
Oh, okay.
CT.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, got those words? All good?
The next one is asking you to pick one of those words that we missed and explain to me what
All right. I think, yeah, we'll choose one. So it says on the write it part, choose one of the words from the sophisticated column. So if I go back, it's empty. Okay. We'll choose one word. Let's use domesticated. That sounds good. Domesticated. So we'll choose one word. That's our one word that we're going to use. Or you can choose one of the different ones that you chose if you want to research more on that word. I'm just going to use domesticated. And it wants us to first use the dictionary to identify the word's meaning. You can use pungent, that's fine. Whichever word you would like to use. Now, first of all, those of you at home might not have a dictionary. I think I have the dictionaries here put away so that we're not using them. So we're going to use dictionary.com. Dictionary.com is a place that you can go to look up words. So you can type it in, click on any of these. I would just choose the online dictionary. Okay. Oh my gosh, go to the website. It's not working. Why is it not working? Okay, let's try Googling it instead. Dictionary. Just a dictionary definition of your word. Yeah. Basically, just Google your word and your definition should come up. So the definition of domesticated would be to tame an animal. Yeah. Oops, wrong one. So to tame an animal. Just a quick definition of it.
If you guys read a little bit deeper into it, the author's actually Native American. She says that she herself has been domesticated. So for people who live close to nature and who live out in the woods and stuff, and renew the seasons and everything, to go live in a house and in the city and drive a car every day, you've been domesticated also.
No. Okay. So we found our definition, and then it wants us to find some synonyms. Synonyms. What's a synonym? Good. A synonym means words that are similar to that word. So if we go back to our Google, oh my gosh, domesticated, and then we can type domesticated synonyms. It kind of starts to pop up. So we can click on it and see what they list. We've got tame, to train, gentle, Okay. So we could just put a few. I'm gonna do tame, train, break in. Just a couple of synonyms there. And then the last thing we need to do is rewrite the line from the poem using one of our synonyms. So we have to find domesticated in our poem. It's line 11. I was also domesticated. And we need to replace the word domesticated with one of our synonyms. So I also was break-in is not the right verb tense. What would it be? Huh? I was broken in. I was tame. I was trained. You could use any of them. You just need to replace your word with a synonym. Yeah, once you have finished up that section, that is all we're going to do, and you can turn it in. Yeah. Yep. Nice and quick this today. Actually, it wasn't even that quick, but
I don't like it, so that counts.
that's good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.